Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside NDF, sponsored by National Dance Foundation. And I'm your host, Kathy Graziano. This episode is another one in our series of talking to the movers and shakers of the dance industry who've been around and who've seen the changes, affected a lot of the changes, and are still moving forward in a positive way. Today, I am so happy to have a longtime friend, Dan Barris, here. We both now, we're just laughing. We both live in Florida now, and we're both from New Jersey, and we've known each other a long time. So it's great to have you here as one of our guests.
Thank you for inviting me, Kathy. This is going to be
Oh,
so much fun.
it is. I love it already. So I always like to start out is to tell us about yourself. When did you get interested in dance, and when did you start?
Well, it's interesting. I started dance at 4 years old, and I started taking tap, twirling baton, and we took elocution lessons. There were
Wow.
six kids in my family, and we took all these lessons from these two women. One was an original rockette from the 1930s, and one was an heiress to the Nissen bread fortune in Maine, which is interesting because they were the two women that nobody could ever figure out, but they lived in this big mansion on a promenade in Maine, and they were lovely, lovely women. And I owe them so much because they taught me everything that I know and everything that I work with today.
Now, did you continue to dance throughout your years and through high school and all of that?
I really did. I continued to dance. I did stop for a while. I was figuring out what I wanted to do as a career, and dance was not really going to be part of it. I started working when I was 7 years old, so I was very young when I started in the industry, and I was a performer and making money at 7. So I was all excited and happy with that. But I performed in many musicals and things like that, and just continued on from there. But it's one of those things that I personally wanted to continue, and I always thought that I would, but I didn't know how I was going to do that. And then when I figured it out, I said, you know what? I don't want to be another dancer like pounding the pavement trying to make a living. I knew that I had the smarts and the brains to do whatever I wanted to do. So the first thing that I did was bought a dance studio. And that's how I started in the industry. I mean, I was teaching dance for many schools, and then I was approached by a ballerina from the Joffrey that I was teaching for, and she offered me her studio. And I ended up buying it with my bestie, Nicole. So the two of us together bought the studio, and that's how it all really last 35 years of my life have been based on Diane Fay, by purchasing a studio from Diane Fay with Nicole Tiedemann.
Now, what year was that? Do you remember?
Oh my goodness. I opened Dancers Inc., the competition in 84. No, in 2004. So probably about 1995,
That's amazing.
about
And
35 years ago. Yeah.
and that's a big deal because at that time opening up a dance studio was still a little on the cutting edge because more kids were getting involved in dance and dance was becoming more popular. Because you and I coming from when we were younger, there it's interesting you brought up about you didn't want to be another dancer paving the pounding the pavement. There were not the options that people have today to perform back.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can remember they just before you even could go into an audition, you had to be a certain height. I mean, you could be a rockette or you had to be a certain height. So
Right.
it's nice to see how it's changed in that way. So tell me, you opened up a dance studio. So what is your experience and how was that going?
Well, I opened up the studio, and I want to first say, and I say this with so much love, it was tough being a male in the industry. So many people did not want a man teaching their daughter how to dance. And it was a different era. I
Yeah.
mean, and it took so much time. I remember being one of, in Regold's magazine, one of the 25 men in dance in 25 years, in an article that it was about the different men that have shaped the industry. And it was so interesting because I wrote that people don't understand what they don't get what they don't understand. So people don't understand the fact that I'm good at what I do. and I love what I do. Therefore, I should be doing what I'm doing. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a guy or a girl or anything. It just has to do with the fact that I love it and I'm passionate about it. Let me give your children the passion that I have.
And who was a big mentor as a teacher to you? If you would, go around as more as you got older as an adult, whose style did you really like, or who was your
Well, my mentor was Linwood Dyer. He was a gentleman from Maine again that was, he opened the first archives of a library, of a Broadway library, and they still have it in Maine. He was one of my teachers. He was the original, he was in Finian's Rainbow on Broadway,
Wow.
way back when. And he took over for the two women that I had mentioned previously. And he was my biggest mentor in my life. And everything that I did for him.
So interesting. So now you have a successful studio going, and now you get a little itch. What made you start with Dancers Inc.? Because that I remember. I think of I still do not pass a pair of blue shoes without thinking about you.
I love that you said that. I love that you said that because my shoe my shoe collection is one of the only things that I still have left from Dancers Inc. is my shoe collection and my glasses. So I still keep a lot of the glasses and a lot of the shoes that I had way back when. Those are my catch-alls, the things that I love to deal with, the things that I love to keep, and it's funny because I still have that massive shoe collection. It's halfway in my bedroom. I have a guest room full of shoes. I have, all kinds. They're everywhere. But I did get an itch. And I started and wanted the competition because I had been working for about 10 years for a competition. And I ended up with pneumonia and an eardrum rupture and 103 fever. And I went on stage and I was very, very sick. And I was running an event for somebody. And I just didn't feel like I wanted to be there anymore. So for me, it was kind of a natural progression. I bought a mailing list from USA Data. And I talked to one of the women that was there who was putting cold packs on my neck and compresses on my neck and said, why don't we try this and see what we can do? So we did everything that we had, second mortgages, did everything we could. And we opened a dance competition with 8 shows in the first season. And then we were up to 12 shows the second season, 16 shows the third season. And then we ended around 30 shows. And that's what we did for years. But I ended up buying it from my partner, Nicole, and I continued with Dancers Inc. By myself for another 15, 16 years after that, and loved it. I loved everything about it. It was such a refreshing thing to be part of an industry that embraced you and wanted what you wanted for the children. I always felt like being honest was such an important factor, and I always felt like I was just very honest with the parents, the kids, the judging. It was all about honesty and being present, and I loved being present at the events, and I loved everything that we did at the events.
You were very beloved. That I know from being with you at the competitions, and you were also very much on that first wave when UDMA, the Dance Teacher Resource Expo, started to expand and more competitions came in, and you were there. Yours was always like one of the most popular booths that was at that time. So you really hit it at a fabulous time and did a fabulous job because you were extremely successful at it. Now, many years later, you work as a judge. So what has changed? Is it more competitive? What do you think? Because I remember fondly dance competitions back in the day when I was still teaching, and I would take them to competitions. So what has changed today?
Well, there's a lot that's changed and a lot has stayed the same. The kids are still dancing. They're still competing, and they're working for 3 judges. They're working for the opinions of 3 judges on that given day, and any day could be different. One of the things that I've noticed is that, I'm going to say this out loud, Kathy, these kids are dancing harder and more stringently than we ever had to in our lives. These kids are dancing circles around people. They're incredible.
Amazing. I'm with you. I'm glad he said it out loud. I'm with you 100%. these kids, back in our day, could have walked
Mhm.
that job anywhere. I mean, they're amazing.
They're incredible. They're working professionals at 12 years old. They can get out there into the industry and do just about everything that you would possibly ask them. I tell kids on tape, when I'm not tape, but on
Comment?
when I'm judging in the comments, I say you're dancing harder than you're ever going to dance as a professional.
Which
It's true.
very
It's
late
true.
true. It's true. Yes.
It's so true because these kids are dancing circles around what they're pulling out 8 pirouettes and 10 pirouettes. They're never going to be asked to do that if they're part of an ensemble. It's just not going to happen. So they're dancing harder than I've ever seen them dance. They're dancing, and I say this again with love. They're dancing with a lack of emotion. There's a
It's
complete lack of emotional commitment. I think that everybody's finding that the facial expressions are not necessary anymore. And I'm one to say that you need to perform to the last row in the auditorium. They're buying seats. You need to project that image to that top row in the auditorium in the theater that you're performing in, because those people bought seats just like the people in the front row. They need to see your expression. They need to see your face. I find a lot with and I say it again, with contemporary and lyrical divisions, I think the kids feel that there's no need to show expression. And I think that is not true. It's a great way for me to think you're not present, that you're not actually working for the judges, that you're working and you're not even giving me the image that you want to be there.
It's interesting that you say that because I have interviewed other competition judges just recently, and her thing was the same thing. She goes, I would rather see emotion than they're fierce competitors, amazing dancers, but I'd rather see more emotion and feeling from it. So definitely that seems to be, it's interesting to see if that'll be a trend that starts to change a little bit now that judges like yourselves are all making more comments about it. So that'll be something.
Well, there's another thing to it too, is that I'm in the older end of the spectrum for judging right now. I'm not a 21-year-old. I mean, I've lived my life. I've owned a studio. I've owned a very successful dance competition and convention. I'm now judging again, but I only judge for friends. I judge for competitions that I find reputable, and I judge for competitions that I really enjoy. They treat their judges well, and I feel like I'm a part of a team when I'm there. That's really important. I think that the kids benefit from that feeling of us being a team. When we're a team and the crew is a team, the kids benefit. And I always wanted that and performed that way. We worked that way at Dancers Inc. When I owned Dancers Inc., we were always part of the group. No one was any more important than anybody else. We were all equally important on that day in those children's lives. And I think that's one of the things that's changed a lot now, because you can open a competition and you're completely anonymous.
Correct.
And
Correct.
the anonymity is not something that I ever wanted for my company. So it's something that I was very, 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 I was very keen on knowing what was going on at all of my events, whether I was there or not.
No, that's very important because that gets to that team spirit. So
Yep.
what do you think? And that's interesting that you relate it to even the team of the judges and the competition itself. So what do you see with the team spirit with studios? Do we still, I mean, these kids, you used to make friends, or get to know the other dance studio that was there, which came trickle down from the top, which you definitely with Dancers Inc. contributed to. Do you see that today?
Well, I also have to give you a little tidbit of information too, Kathy. I'm teaching at a studio named Melody Lane Performing Arts Center here in Cape Coral, Florida now. And
Wow.
I'm working 2 and 3 nights a week. I go in and I work with their advanced kids and their tappers and musical theater. And it's an amazing little studio that is just, I love everything about it. It reminds me of the way that I grew up when I was a young dancer. And it's very theater oriented. They have a national award winning theater team there. that's incredible. They travel to LA, they travel to Georgia, they travel to New York, and they win. These kids in theater are amazing. But me working on the dance side of this, I'm back in the thick of it, and as a dancer, as a judge, and as a choreographer now, I see it from both sides. So I've been the owner, I've been the teacher, I've been the judge. Now I'm seeing it again 25 years later.
Yeah. What would you change? So if you could change something of how everybody's thinking with competitions, what would you change?
Oh my God, I wouldn't let them do more than one or two solos.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my heavens. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said God in there. I would not why do dancers have to do three solos and show me the same thing three times? I've kids on 3 and 4 times in a solo, and I'm horrified. By the third time I see them on stage, I want to get up there and fix them. I just want to jump up from my chair and fix them because I've seen them do the same thing too many times.
I know. That's so funny. That's so funny. So there's so many, I know we talk about the good and the bad about competition, but why is it really such a positive experience for students to go to a competitive school and to compete? Why is that a positive experience for them?
Any performance opportunity that these kids have in this day and age is a positive experience. If they can get up on stage and perform for the panel of judges, these kids are preparing themselves for a future, whether it's a future in dance or a future in politics or a future in sales. It doesn't matter. These kids are learning so much from a young age. And I have parents come up to me and often tell me that they have no idea how their kids can do this in front of a panel of judges. And they would have no idea how to go on an interview. But their children are being prepared for that every day that they're in class and every day that they're on stage. And the best benefit that these kids can have is the opportunity to perform, whether it's for a panel of judges or perform independently at a recital or a spring concert or a winter recital, whatever they're doing. Performing is where it's at, and giving those children the opportunity to be on stage is so important today in this day and age.
And you know what? It's something that they won't even realize until later
Until they're older. Yep.
Until they're older, they have no idea that being able to go and being prepared to go on stage and be able to come over that, what that really helps them to accomplish. Because you know what I've also found, and you probably would agree with this, your best students are usually scholastically very good students also. Like it's not like it's a big disparity. They're usually very good in school, and they're usually very good at dance. So the two really work well together.
I say this at Melody Lane now, and I said this at Dancers Inc. when I was on stage. If you were to take the average GPA on stage or in the classroom, its average is an A.
Yes.
Average is an A. These kids are overachievers, and they're working diligently on their homework. They work on their 15-minute breaks on homework. They eat a power bar and they run back into class for another 3 hours. These kids are so motivated, and their direction in life is planned not by a parent, not by somebody else in the outside world. They're planning it themselves. They're planning for their own future.
That's amazing. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
We have a seasoned person with us, so let's go down the advice lane.
Uh-oh.
What advice would you give someone who wanted to start a dance competition?
Run in the opposite direction.
Why is that?
Get rid of that feeling in your heart. Get rid of that. Anybody that wants to start a dance competition, realize that it is going to be so much more work than you ever imagined in your life. I'm living the retired life down here now, and I am loving everything about it. You know, Brian and I came down here. We're, adopting animals and having a great time with that, and part of the Refuge League, and, doing all of these great things that I always wanted to have time for. I was married to my business for 20 hours a day for 17 years. And I was working winter, spring, summer, and fall. And people think that you do 16 shows or 20 shows or 28 shows. It's not only the shows. It's going
Exactly.
to trade shows. It's being part of an industry. And you're working when people say, oh, they work 18 days a year. No, they don't. They work 395 days a year, which is 30 more than anybody else does. But owning a dance competition was such a beautiful thing for me, and it was such a beautiful moment in my life. But I was ready to retire and move. It was interesting. I was at the point where I said, do you want a boat? Do you want a house? Do you want to play a summer place? What do you want to do? Do you want to go somewhere? And all I heard from my partner was, I just want more time. There's no time with you. And when I heard that, I went, I'm
Wow.
done. I'm done with everything. I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to continue life in a different fashion, because you don't hear that often. All that he said was he wanted time.
That's amazing. And I
So,
always go back and think of Dancers Inc. It was kind of a different time when you started. It was a
mhm,
good time for dance competitions. There's a lot of dance competitions today. So
there are.
people, it's crazy that way. So if you're not going to give advice to do a dance competition, what about opening a dance studio? What advice would you give for that?
Well, I still do. I mean, I could give advice about the competition. I think that if people wanted to open a competition, good luck with that. They basically need a lot of overhead, and I've worked with one of my former title winners, and he's opened one with his sister and the family, and it costs a lot of money to open a dance competition to start.
That's,
So be prepared to spend a lot of money in the beginning, and don't plan on making any money for at least 2 to 3 years.
that's a
So
lot. That's a
that's a
lot.
lot. That's a lot of time that you're going to have to give to your organization to see it become successful. I mean, when I sold my business, I sold great. I'm very happy with how I sold it, and I'm very happy for the people that bought it, and they're doing a great job with it now. But you've got to prepare yourself to work on godly hours and put in a
And
lot of attention, time, and money. And the same would go with a dance studio, I think. You have to be friendly. To own a dance studio, you have to be open to all of the parents and the kids. You need to be able to take the parents. You have to take them seriously, because the minute a parent thinks that they're not being taken seriously or being considered as valid is the minute that they find the school around the corner. There are so many dance schools in operation right now. We're a service industry. The first thing that we are is serving people, and we're serving the community. We get paid by people to
that's
work with their children.
it's exactly, exactly. It's a business.
It's a business, and
Children.
yeah,
Yes.
it's a business in the service industry, and people don't realize that sometimes. They want to have these rules and these regulations. You could only have the rules and the regulations that the parents are going to follow.
Right.
Now,
Right.
if you're asking for these unrealistic expectations from the parents and the kids, they're not going to stay with you. You need to set a precedent that you're going to be fair, you're going to be honest, you're going to be kind, but you're also going to be stern. I mean, the parents want their children, they want them to be part of a team. And when you open a dance school, you are opening something that gives kids the sense and the feeling of being part of a team.
You know what? That's very nice advice. And that's a very good way to look at something, because everybody wants to belong. And that's
Hmm.
important. When
Hmm.
somebody feels that they're respected and they belong, it really flourishes a lot more. That,
Yeah.
I love that piece of advice. So now you're having a studio and they're entering the competition field for the first time. How do you kind of choose a competition? Any suggestions?
Well, I'm going to say it's funny because a lot of people are against the leveling systems now. And, the beginner, intermediate, advanced, because people often say that they're putting their kids in the wrong categories or the wrong divisions. And that's a big thing on, the dance teacher websites and all of that.
Sure.
My flip side to that is that it may be the intermediate division at their studio, because they may be pulling 3 pirouettes in their intermediate level, but their advanced kids are pulling 7 or 8.
Correct.
So their intermediates are those kids that everybody's opposed to dancing in the intermediate level. But I think that the competitions need to be more aggressive in stating what is necessary for each division and each level. I think that all the competitions that are out there, and when I look for them, I look for someone that might have a beginner and intermediate and advanced, not necessarily because I want my kids to be able to go into that intermediate level, but I want them to be placed accordingly. I want my beginners to be competing against beginners, my intermediates to be competing against intermediates, and the same thing with the advanced kids. I want them to be competing with other advanced kids. I'm finding that intermediate level is the strongest and the biggest one though these days. And I almost want to go back to everybody's competing for the same points and the same trophies, and you all to get gold, silver, bronze.
That's a good point. Because on the other hand, if you're entering as a new studio, you might want to be in that intermediate level because you really don't know what your competition you're going to be up against. You don't even know how it's going to fare, competitively until you actually get out there and do it.
That's true. Very true.
So that's a good point. So I know over the years, and especially with Miss Nancy Stone, you've been such a good supporter of National Dance Foundation. And we have our mission of kindness, inclusion, and community. So that plus National Dance Week, why would you say that was important to you? Because you were a great friend to NDF all these years.
I think it's important that everybody is included everywhere. Kids today need to realize that the work that they do today is going to show up tomorrow.
Right.
If they are working hard and diligently and they're including people and they're working for inclusivity, they then are opening the doors for people in the future to be more open to just about anything.
And it's interesting because we take that here at NDF on a microcosm scale to a bigger scale. It first was just including maybe those special needs dancers that you didn't want to have in your group, or that dancer when we go out to perform at the NBA games who isn't as good as that triple platinum winner. So it starts small, because if you can start small like that, then like you said, it opens up and you're more inclusive. And
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
We had a special needs program at Dancers Inc. where we had special needs dancers that competed for free. And we had that from the first year that we were open, and they still work with that today. So 20 years now, we've been letting the kids compete. And I know one girl that's been competing for about 15 of those years. And she is one of the most lovely young ladies that I've ever met in my life. She was the flower girl and the ring bearer at my wedding.
Oh my gosh, that's so...
Yep.
People forget how long, either being with the dance competition or as a dance teacher, your students for, you'll have them 10 years, with you somewhere along the line. So that's amazing. So why would you encourage people to get involved in National Dance Foundation and celebrate National Dance Week?
Oh, National Dance Week is synonymous with the world of dance. It really is. For me, National Dance Week and the National Dance Foundation have been around for long enough now that people need to know in the dance community what you're doing to include everybody and work with the special needs kids and work with kids that aren't necessarily the stars of the studio, but you work with all of those kids and you do flash mobs and you do just about everything, Kathy. And I really admire you for that. But your work with NDF has made it visible for everybody to work with a program of inclusivity and caring and companionship and friendship. You're the one that did that.
And you knowing me for so long, I appreciate your kind words, because that means a lot to me. And really, everybody asks me, what is National Dance Foundation? I said it's a true nonprofit foundation that just is offering opportunity for kids to perform or to get
right.
That's all it is. We don't sell anything. There's no, that's just what it is. It's just to get everybody to, now we call it hashtag KIC. Kindness, inclusion, and community.
Yep.
So we appreciate it. Dan, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to be part of the podcast and to join us here at Inside NDF. And for me, it's been a pleasure catching up. So I, of course, enjoy it tremendously. But before we leave, any final comments you would like to add?
I just want to say that I appreciate you having me on. I hope I gave some valuable information. And remember, one solo is sufficient in competition.
I love that you're ending with that. So thank you. Well,
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining this episode of Inside NDF. Again, we're sponsored by National Dance Foundation. If you'd like to learn more, please visit our website at nationaldancefoundation.org. So as we say goodbye, we leave you with our final parting words. Keep dancing. Thank you, everybody.